This is the Politics of Everything, and I'm your host, Amber Daines. Welcome to the podcast where we want to discuss the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment to equality, and much more. Our guests are experts in their field or topic of choice, even if you've not yet heard their name. This is a bipartisan podcast, so while we love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate, by no means is this a one-sided forum for any one political view. So please listen up and enjoy the politics of everything. I can still recall my Year 10 economics teacher telling me that specialisation was the key to workforce efficiencies. Today I'm in conversation with Robert Tadros, who got his first job at age 14 in a fast food outlet and has never stopped working since. Most recently, he founded a Melbourne-based digital marketing agency, Impressive Digital, some 2 years ago. It's now a thriving company with an annual turnover forecast at $3.5 million this year, which Robert attributes to specialisation, and a team of super talented employees and scores of clients, including Misha Collection, digiDIRECT and XBlades. This may have made Robert seem like an overnight success story, but according to him, his story isn't so much one of glamour, but rather a perseverance. Tadros moved to Australia from Egypt when he was just 10 and, like many immigrants, has learnt the value of hard work. I welcome Robert to share more about his experience as we discuss the politics of specialisation. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a bit about your childhood. It's a bit different to most people who come on my show. You came to Australia when you were 10. Do you remember that experience, and what was it like coming from Egypt to Australia at that time?
Absolutely. Look, we actually landed in Australia on the 20th of September 1985, and it's actually my birthday. It was my birthday that day. So I definitely do recall the day, very much so. You know, Amber, it is very different, right? I come, as you mentioned, from Egypt, from a place called Alexandria. On the Mediterranean there, and it's a very multicultural city, right? It's very similar to Melbourne, but on the other side of the world. I went to an English school, an English and French school actually. So English was pretty much my first language, and French was second, and Arabic was third. So I guess I was fortunate in the sense that as I said, I went to an English school, so English was pretty easy for me. So I guess to a certain degree, you could say from a language perspective, I didn't really have any issues. But where I guess a lot of the challenges where we left our friends, our family, both my parents and obviously myself, and that was pretty hard for me as a 10-year-old to leave all that behind.
Imagine. You're not sort of like it's when you're 2 and you could just come and I guess you would have started school and you'd have friends, and it'd be completely different coming to Australia.
Absolutely. Look, and it's not an experience that a lot of people go through, so I think it definitely taught me a lot, and I guess to a certain degree you can say it's made me who I am today as well. I learned a lot. There was a lot of perseverance, as you mentioned earlier, and it was definitely a different experience, and it was very challenging. And for the first, I remember 2 to 3 years trying to just adapt from a very different culture.
What sort of things do you remember about that? Was it like the food you ate, the types of experiences at school, the uniform, and what was some of the nuances, if you could unpack those, of what was so different?
Yeah, sure. So look, I mean, all the above, right? And more. So, if I remember my first day at school, like, a new guy that just comes into school from Egypt, you naturally get a little bit bullied here and there, because you are a little bit different, you dress a little bit different, you talk a little bit different, and you learn very quickly as a 10-year-old that you need to change, you need to adapt, right? So that was quite a challenging time in my life. I remember running home and I used to cry to my parents, I don't want to do this, I want to go home. So it was very challenging. I had no friends, and it was hard making new friends when you actually stick out like a sore thumb, right? You're a new guy that just come into school, and so yeah, look, but it was I look now back, and I look back now,
character building, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes it tough.
So fast forwarding a little bit, in your early career, what did you actually do? Did you have something you had your dream job, or did you sort of fumble your way through, and were you a specialist in any sort of area or skill set?
Yeah, so there's a funny story here. I'm an architect, believe it or not. Right, so I studied architecture, and I veered off a little bit, and at the age of 19, and I discovered online marketing and online shopping, and I opened my first online store that was importing products from the US over to here, health products, and I got pretty deep into it. I found you could almost say a second passion to architecture. But my entire life, I knew I always wanted to be an architect. It was just this, I guess you could say I had this passion for it, right? I had a big passion for design and just architectural buildings, and it's pretty much, I knew from when I was at a very young age that that's what I wanted to do. But I kind of threw a spanner in the works at the age of 19, and started this online business, and it was generating me a lot of revenue. Like at one stage, I was making $15,000 a week, and that's a lot of money for a 19-year-old back then.
Absolutely, wow! And I guess that's really interesting. So it sounds like you obviously, and architecture is a long degree. I do know friends that have done it. It's sort of it's you got to really, really love it to do well in it and persevere at it. And launching that business at 19 while you were studying RMIT. How did it start and how did it end, that business for you?
Look, I got my first job when I was 14 in KFC, right? And from that day, I basically didn't stop working, right? So I went from KFC, I was a porter at a hotel, and it got to the point when I was at uni, I couldn't juggle studying and working to be able to live to the at the same sort of level that I wanted to live at, right? So I thought to myself, there's got to be a better and easier way for me to do this. So and as I said, I discovered the online world, and I did a lot of digging around, and I thought, while I am studying, as you said, it was a long degree. Surely there's something that I could do online that could generate me the same amount of income that I could earn working a part-time job, but doing it from the comfort of my own home. And look, to be honest, I mean, a lot of 19-year-olds don't probably think like that, right?
I was going to say, it sounds like you're generating a little bit more than just to pay the rent. So you kind of started this up, and how long did that go for, and how did you exit that business?
Yeah, so that went on for 3 years. I actually exited the business and I sold it at the same time that I was finishing uni, and I basically put it out on the market, and I had a lot of buyers, and I ended up selling it to a local. It was actually a family here in Melbourne, and I believe it's still going fairly strong.
Excellent. Your legacy lives on.
Yeah, it does.
You also had a corporate career, not in architecture, but a job with Census, and you were responsible for managing $10 million portfolio for that company's top clients. That's a bit of a gear shift from running your own online business and studying architecture. Did you specialize on solving a particular problem throughout this sort of phase of your career? And how did you really achieve so much in a career role where perhaps you weren't formally trained in it?
Look, post exiting the business, I just I really did develop a passion for digital and for marketing in general, and I did a lot of digging around to figure out where what are my next steps. There was two roads. One, I could go down the architectural road, and by then I'd already had my degree and whatnot, or I can go down the marketing role. So I found Census at the time. It was arguably the biggest advertising company in Australia, and you could say I climbed up the corporate ladder, right? I started right at the bottom and worked my way up to managing basically the top tier clients for Census. And back to I guess to specialization. I mean, I specialized in solving problems. Okay, that was my speciality. I was solving problems for businesses, and those problems were: how do we get more leads? How do we generate more revenue? How do we get more exposure? Right, and that's where really I specialized in. That was me, right? I wasn't sales, I wasn't marketing. I was solving and educating the end users or the companies themselves on how to be better at what they do, and how does that impact the bottom line.
And what sort of problems would you be solving? Are we talking, lots of strategy stuff, or to be much more practical than that?
It was very much strategy. Businesses naturally have a lot of pain points in areas that they want to excel in, and they just don't know how to, right? Or they just need the right expertise. So I leveraged a lot of my learnings from A, my online store, and B, the corporate career that I had through Census, and I guess the exposure that I had to multiple different verticals and industries, right, and different businesses, and I kind of packaged all that up, and that's what I essentially went to market with. Was that a lot of those insights that I gained into those industries and businesses.
Oh, that's very interesting. And why did you leave? What was the impetus to leave Census? Because it sounds like you were doing well. You got some runs on the board. You obviously had climbed that ladder. Why the change?
Look, to be honest, I was looking for the next challenge. Right, I hit a bit of I hit the ceiling. Right, there was nowhere else for me to go. It was, and I've always wanted to have my own business, and I had a dream to always run my own, my own company. So it was just time for me to move on to the next challenge. So and you could say I was pretty crazy at the time, and a lot of my colleagues used to tell me, "You're on a pretty good wicket, Rob. What are you doing?" Right? So it was a calculated gamble, and it was a very big gamble at that time in my life. But it was time for me to move on and go on to the next big thing.
And it seems like while you're working at Census, you probably had this idea for what became Impressive Digital. Were you working on that exit at the same time as starting the business, or was there a line in the sand for you?
Yeah, so I actually left. I founded the business on my own, if you like, sort of part time, and I was doing some freelance work for a number of different, small companies, and I sort of started building up my portfolio, and I was doing a lot of after hour work, whilst I was still at Census to build the brand and build the business, to the
so
point.
So sleep wasn't important to you, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely not. Look, from the age, you could almost say from the age of 29, or from 28 probably, 28 till only last year, I was doing crazy hours, right? 18 to 20 hour days. It was, I had one shot at it, and I gave it my all. So for me, I got into a bit of a routine where I was, I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd sleep for an hour, and I basically just kept going. To 2, 3, sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I had to do it all over again. So I was very, very determined, and as I said, I had one shot at it, so I gave it everything I had.
That's impressive. So, and obviously your agency is called Impressive, so that's might be how that all came to be. I'm not sure. Do you specialise in a certain type of client archetype or an industry in your digital marketing offering? What do you say is your specialisation? Because there are a lot of digital marketing agencies out there. What makes you guys different?
Look, when I first started, I did a lot of competitor analysis, and I really wanted to understand the landscape out there and what I was up against. And a lot of agencies are full service agencies, right? It's an end-to-end solution. And I thought, okay, well, I might as well, if it's not broken, why fix it? I'll join and I'll become that full service agent. So Impressive did, for the first 12 months, become a full service agency where we were offering website design, development, social media, both community management and paid management, SEO, SEM, graphic design, branding, really an end-to-end solution. And very quickly I discovered that I was doing things the wrong way. Right. And that a lot of these agencies out there and so-called digital marketers were basically just trying to win business. So it didn't matter what these businesses were wanting. They would find the solution somehow, and they would, basically go out to market and say, well, we offer this service. So I sort of sat back and I went, okay, what are we actually really good at, and where are we getting exceptional results and excellent results for our clients? And it came down to two major services, right? And it's paid social and SEO and SEM. Right, they sort of fall under the one banner, so search and social. And I let go of what was basically about 30% of our business, which was the website design and development component. And at that time, 12 months, it was a big move. Right. And once again, I had staff and colleagues and even my wife, she was like, "Are you sure this is the right decision?" I said, "Well, if we can specialize and excel at what we do, we're going to be excellent and be great and very efficient, and give that perceived value, I guess, to businesses, right? Rather than being the jack of all trades and master of none." And it was interesting, right? After we pivoted, the business tripled in 1 year. So, I think I sit back now and I think, I wish I did that earlier. Right?
Absolutely. I've been through a similar experience in my business. I started off over a decade ago, and I was a small business PR agency, and all work was good work. When you're starting up, it's a bit of copywriting, a bit of this, a bit of PR. And then really at the end of the day, about 5 years into it, it took me a long time to realize I wasn't loving all of it, and I was just taking on extra work for the sake of it, just to grow the business, if you like. But the relief I felt when I specialized in, now I do presentation skills and media training and crisis PR, because that's the stuff I love, and my team as well. I just have people who really love just doing that. So it is tempting to be the jack of all trades, but it sounds like for you, definitely specialization has really worked. And I read the statistic that you had a 500% increase in turnover. Is that in the past 12 months? Is that
that's in the past 12 months.
That's incredible. I mean, not many people would achieve that in a small business environment where it would be very competitive, I imagine, in digital marketing as well.
Extremely competitive. Look, and on your point, I mean, I'm a big believer in if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's, again, and I got to attribute a lot of our success to the team that that I've built, and they're very, very talented individuals, and I must say, they don't feel like they come to work, right? So, and that's a big, I guess, a big. That's what I mean. I attribute that a lot to our success, the fact that they feel that they're part of something, right, rather than just being another number in a business.
No, I think that's really important. Where do you think a lot of businesses, in your experience, maybe get it a bit wrong when it comes to both growing and remaining true to that point of difference?
Yeah, look, for me, I feel like a lot of businesses focus too much on revenue. Of course, revenue is important, and without it, the business wouldn't survive. But I think if you focus too much on the end number, you'll take a lot of shortcuts with your product, your service, your employees, your processes, your methodologies. Where if you actually take it back and go back a couple of steps and focus on what is actually really important, which for us is the customer. So for us, we are very customer centric. We want to be able to deliver excellent results to that customer. And if we do that, the revenue will come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So,
yeah. And I guess clients stay as well, right? Like I think that when you lose a client, that costs you far more than just the actual client. It's the process of, replacing them and perhaps, what damage that does to your business as well.
Absolutely. Look, and it's not good for the culture of the business either to be losing a lot of clients. And unfortunately, a lot of businesses in this industry, I refer to it as, they've got these buckets with holes. Right. For them, they find it easy to acquire a lot of new business, but every month they're acquiring new business and they're losing a lot of business out the back end as well. So retention is a big piece for business, right? We've got an amazing retention rate. I'm being a little bit biased here, but it's in the 90%. So I think retention is a big piece of business, right? If you're not retaining your current customers, then there's definitely you're doing something wrong.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. And also, how do you attract the right type of client? Because I guess they've got to be a match with you as well. Like you've got your specialization, but what sort of values and way of working do you prioritize when it comes to clients?
Yeah, so we've got a number of different verticals that we do exceptionally well in. So again, we do specialize in e-commerce. I know it's fairly broad, but fashion and apparel is a very big vertical for us. We've got some pretty big brands that we work for in that space, and naturally that attracts a lot of new business as well. Word of mouth, I believe, in any business is extremely important. So although we go out there and we have a very aggressive sales and marketing strategy and a brand strategy and so on, word of mouth is a very strong, and referrals as well, right? So referral and word of mouth are a strong part of our business. And look, Australia is not a very big place, so naturally a lot of this, the results speak for themselves, and and it generates a lot of business for us.
Absolutely. And do you find that a lot of your clients are obviously national because they are in that sort of fashion space and lifestyle space? Is it you just working with Melbourne clients, or you've got global clients? What's sort of the trend for you in terms of the client specialty?
When we first started, we were very much localized here in Melbourne, and then naturally, as we started to grow and we started to acquire larger businesses that have footprint across the whole of Australia and internationally, we've been able to now expand our footprint now to go into some. Certain clients are in 10 countries or 12 countries, and one particular client's in 43 countries. So we've had a lot of exposure outside of Australia, and now we're starting to attract a lot of overseas companies as well that are trying to come into Australia and sell their products here as well. So, and they're looking for that local agency that can deliver results in a market that they understand. So again, look, it's been a bit of a process, and again, marketing overseas is very different to marketing here in Australia.
Totally.
You need to understand, the persona that you're dealing with over there and so on. But we've got a fairly big portfolio of businesses that have global footprint, and we've developed our capabilities on those areas as well.
So do you have an example of a time when you felt like your specialisation skills came under the microscope and you had to fine-tune them even more, a time when you had to pedal a bit harder in what you do and really be the top of your game, and how did you go about that?
Yeah, look, it is tough. Look, and specialisation is a business decision at the end of the day. right? So for us, it was all about, we did have a couple of clients in the earlier stages where, it was predominantly just mainly around social media. And, at the time, although we specialized in social, as I'm sure you're aware, is broken down into two components: there's community management and paid advertising. And once again, we learned and we were doing both at the time. We learned very quickly that we were very good at the paid advertising versus community management. So we did have to pedal very quickly to try and, find our feet in the community management space. And because of that particular experience that we had with the client, we actually stopped doing the community management component because we weren't excellent at it. Right? We were good at it, but we weren't great at it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So although we did social media, again, we broke that down even further and went, well, we're not very good at community management. We are very good at paid. So we'll move over and we'll pivot ourselves to more paid advertising. So again, I was fortunate enough to learn that right at the early stages and make, educated decisions based on that experience.
That's really interesting. Thank you for being so vulnerable, because I think we can often learn from other people. And obviously even though you've had great success, there's obviously, it's not always just an upward journey. So I'm always curious to pick the brains.
Not always rosy, right?
No, sort of that, that iceberg image you always think of with the entrepreneur, where people just see this overnight success, and really there's all this peddling and disappointment and heartache and loss that goes on that people don't see or don't want to see. So
it's a very dark road until you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Totally. It's not always just keep going up. I think that's the thing people think as well. You can't sort of rest on your laurels. So how do you hire the right people at an Impressive Digital? Like, do they need to be experts and specialists in what they do, or is it the right type of person that you can kind of mold and shape into the skill set that you really need?
That's a very good question, Amber. Look, and I speak about this a lot, but I'm all for hiring talent versus hiring staff, right? I've got this theory that staff are everywhere. It's very easy to hire people that are happy to work 9 to 5, and they're slaves to their paychecks and all the rest of it, right? But I really do try and go out there and find unicorns. Right, like trying to find a needle in a haystack, specialists, people that are excellent at what they do. Although they're not, they're not the cheapest. They do come with a price tag, but they pay dividends. Right, they're extremely, professional at what they do and very good at the services that they provide. So for us, it's not just about putting bums on seats. Right, I mean, it's the most recent role. It took me 9 months to hire for. I can.
Really? What type of role were they? Were they literally like there's like 2 people in the world that do this?
Yeah, no. It was a Facebook specialist role.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of Facebook specialists out there. There's heaps. I probably interviewed at least, I reckon, about 120 people, right?
Yeah. Wow, and that's a lot.
It's a lot of people, right? over the course of 9 months. So we do have a very rigorous process that we go through. For me, it's all about longevity and providing that individual when they come into this business with a great culture and a great place to work. So, I guess back to your question, it's extremely important for us, and it's a big part of my strategy to hire extremely talented people versus just hiring staff and putting bums on seats.
Totally, that totally makes sense. Do you have any special mentors or inspirational people that have guided you in this journey, and who are they, and what have they taught you about life?
To be honest, I don't. I do a lot of, you could say, reading and a lot of listening to audiobooks. Look, I mean,
who do you like to read? Who do you like to get your sort of mojo from?
Big fan of Tony Robbins, to be honest.
You were the second guest today who said that, so I don't know what's in the air, but he must have done some social media push posts for you all.
Oh, look, I've been a big fan of Tony for a long time, and I listen to a lot of. I've read a number of his different books, and I listen to a lot of his audio as well. I think he's great. Really, he really put things in perspective for me, and a lot of what he says resonates with me. So for me, although I don't have any mentors as such, which is actually something that I am working on to try and find the right mentor. I do listen to a lot of entrepreneurs and learn from a lot of their heartache and what they've gone through in their personal life and their professional life. So he's probably the one at the top of the list.
That's one that we're all very familiar with. Last advice, what would be your top 3 tips for people listening who want to get ahead in the politics of specialisation?
Look, I always say find your niche, right? That's the key, right? Well,
And is it the thing that you love to do and you're good at, and that sort of, I've always seen that picture where how you make money is you kind of find what you're passionate about, what you're good at, and what you can make a living from, and that's often what you be doing.
That's right. If I find that one thing that you are really good at where that can deliver value to that end user or to that client. Right. I mean, that for me, as I mentioned, is a big piece of is one of the massive reasons why we've grown so quickly. Right. So that's probably my number one tip. The second tip, which I'm a big believer in, is stop living in the what if world. Right. I've said this on a number of different interviews that I've had, but don't think to yourself, well, what if this happens? What if this business fails, and what if I can't specialize in this particular service? If you are very good at that service or product, you will do extremely well. I mean, if you're passionate about it and it really is what you love doing, the end result is there. So I feel that's as a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, as I said, it's a hard road, right? And it's hard to really pinpoint what it is you're very good at, and you end up doing everything into that business. So if you can really hone down on what it is you're very good at, and it does provide value to your customer, the revenue will come and it will be fruitful. So that was a big learning curve for me as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, if you do want to connect further with Robert, we will have some details on our show notes. You've been listening to The Politics of Everything. Until next time, keep well. Thanks for listening today. If you've enjoyed The Politics of Everything, we thrive on feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network and your friends and family. I'm also always on the hunt for fabulous new guests. So if you've got a view to share and an idea how to get our listeners excited, please email me at amber@bespokecomms, that's BESPOKECOMMS.com.au, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Until next time.